Simon here from Re-Evolution Arts, and we're going to have a sit-down interview today with Rob Tite. He's the booker and promoter for 50 Below Promotions. He has booked a plethora of amazing bands and brought them into the Cheltenham scene. Let's see what he has to say. Rob, hello sir. Shake my hand. How are you, man?
Good, man, good.
Yeah?
It's a nice day, and it's the first day of a week off.
We've missed Lorenzo. The Storm Lorenzo. He passed us
Is that
by.
what it's called? I didn't even follow to know what.
Storm Lorenzo has passed us by.
I thought it was Storm Greta in the last couple of weeks.
I don't know, these fucking Storm names are so stupid.
This is it. I don't know who's got the naming rights on this, but Lorenzo.
I know. I don't know where they get the names from. There must be somewhere that they calculate the names from.
Yeah, I like to think there's kind of some book somewhere, and they just names and
Category 3 is a Lorenzo.
That's a Lorenzo. If it was in category 4, it might have been like a Linda or something.
Storm Linda.
Can you imagine?
Storm Geraldine.
Sounds like a hairdresser or a dinner lady, doesn't it? That would be. No, don't know where we're going with this.
Right, talking of storms, let's talk about the storm of music that is being caused in Cheltenham at the moment by you. You are responsible for the awesome music that's being brought to Cheltenham.
It's very kind of you to say.
No problem, it's true though. I ain't lying. So let's start right at the beginning, man. How did you actually get into promoting?
Yeah, so gosh, that was about 2.5 years ago, wasn't it? A number of things sort of all happened at once, I guess, with that. There was no one single thing. What I experienced, it was the start of 2017, I discovered a couple of bands. I'd always gone to a lot of gigs and really enjoyed some of the smaller acts, the less well-known, not the sort of mainstream ones. And there was one in particular called Hands Off Gretel that I'd seen on YouTube. And then I noticed they were playing in Bristol a few months later. So I went down to this show. It was a free entry show as well. They were absolutely brilliant. And that was one of the moments that made me think, well, I know somewhere in Cheltenham that does free entry shows, does live music.
Yeah.
Maybe something could happen there.
Yeah.
This is the quality of bands that will play that kind of show in that kind of sort of pub environment.
So that got the wheels kind of turning.
That was one of the things that started to get me thinking. And other things that happened were lots of conversations at the pub with musicians and people there about how did they feel, so the musicians in particular, how did they feel about what it was like to sort of get into venues, what did they think the music scene was like, and there was sort of thoughts around generally that they weren't too satisfied with things at the moment, possibly, and also there were some people at the Cotswold Inn, so that's where I do the stuff, and not just there, but there was a sense that people were interested in seeing original music, that they were willing to give new bands a chance. So at that point I had a potential venue, I had at least one band I thought I could maybe book.
Start.
It was supposed to be a start. And there was an appetite there from the audience. Whenever you're trying to put anything out there, whether it be music or whatever medium, you have to think about, is there an audience for what I'm doing? Otherwise it's just going to go anywhere. So that sort of gets lined up, and I'd also been made, or was in the process of being made redundant from my full-time job as well, so I needed something.
So that was another element added on.
Absolutely. And then there was a chap, sadly no longer with us, called John, who lived at the Cotswold, was there for many, many years, and this band, Hands Off Gretel, I introduced them to him. He absolutely loved them. We went to go for a show as well a few months after, and he knew the owner very well, and so of the Cotswold. So we, with all of these things, all these sort of planets aligning at once, was able to go to the Cotswold and suggest this idea. Very fortunately, they took a punt on it, and I guess the rest is history in many respects.
And then that was how it all got started.
That was it. Just a random encounter on YouTube, discovering a band, listening to a few more. But by chance they were playing, I went, and then it just all...
Just snowballed from there.
Absolutely.
Just got more and more and more and more.
And it's weird, because it struck me that many times since I've thought about the fact that was I ever really aware of this kind of unsigned underground scene? Because you see these mainstream bands, magazines, and well, they must come from somewhere, but that thought never really consciously entered my mind.
Yeah, it is like two separate planes, and you need to get, once you find the other one, you're like, hold on a minute, there's a whole world here that I've never seen.
It's like lifting up a rock and seeing all this.
yeah.
Not to say you're all cockroaches, but it's.
Well, look at all these musicians under here. It's amazing.
It's like, what? How have I never seen this before? And then I start looking back and I think, well, yeah, actually I probably did. Sort of 9 years ago at Two Pigs, I went to see one band that are still on the scene right now, and I could probably book if I wanted to. And I thought, okay, well then a few years ago, I saw a band from Oxford, went to see them on a couple of tour dates, and they were probably at a level similar to many of these bands, maybe a bit more advanced. And I thought, well, actually, yeah, I have been watching these, and I wish I'd done this sooner. But but I guess things just had to happen.
Yeah, it just hadn't to realise.
For this kind of thought to emerge, and then
it was like a musical epiphany. You were like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I can put all these things together.
Yeah, but and another point, I guess, another thing which made me think about doing it was the fact that at that time, I didn't feel myself that there was a great variety of venues doing music. Was one major venue in town. Beyond that, it was very sporadic, and so again, when I was looking into all of these things about the bands and the bands that are out there, you kind of feel that they might struggle to get into this place, but actually maybe we can put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Give people these an opportunity to discover these bands, give these bands a new place to play, reach new audiences, and beyond that, you get people who will travel to see some of these bands.
Yeah, I like that. You're like the first. You're like the transition where you can transition some of these bands, kind of pushing them on to the next phase, because you're like, come play here. And then people here will go, wow, that was fantastic. Maybe you might be able to play here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here.
Exactly, yeah. I've seen a number of bands that have played at the Cotswold, and then they've gone to play at the Frog and Fiddle, and things like that. So the Soap Girls would be one of those examples.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Played a couple of times at Cotswold, then this year.
Then people go, oh, we want that here as well, because that was awesome.
People start to, is it.
Take notice.
We'll get to that, yeah.
So you talked a little bit about music and about Hands Off Gretel. Music in general, how did you discover music just in general? Was it, as a kid, was there any, because I know for me it was my parents that influenced me with music, but like, I mean, you know, when you grew up, what was happening in the house?
Sure. So I would say that about 8 years old was a pivotal moment, and what happened was my brother, who's 5 years older than me, he got this Rock Anthems tape. Nice. Things were tape back then.
Oh man! Oh god!
We didn't have any concept of digital music. We didn't know what the internet was. It wasn't even a thing back then. People paid for music, so we had this tape that come on, and it was a dual, 2 cassettes.
Oh,
in there
2
as well.
cassettes, classic, the classic 2 cassette.
So I'd listened to this, and I was like, "What is this? I love this." And there was one band in particular that I latched onto, and that was Faith No More.
Nice.
And so from that, we'd go into MVC back in the day when that was a thing.
MVC. I had an MVC card.
MVC, yeah.
I had an MVC card.
Yeah, so I remember going down there in Gloucester and picking up their Live in Brixton show on tape, and then listening to that. So I was quite lucky, I think, that I benefited from having an older brother. That meant that I was able to circumvent the chart music that every other kid in school was listening to. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I liked...
there were some bangers back... When you look back on it now, you think, compared to what's out now, the music then is incredible.
It's actually pretty decent.
It's pretty good.
And I really enjoyed the Britpop scene as well. I was very much into Blur and Sleeper and Elastica and bands like that. So I still had that element, but also, the heavier stuff was going on. So when I reach secondary school age, at 96 that was, within about a year or two, start seeing the new metal punching through. So you had bands like Korn and Bizkit, and many of them sort of influenced by the likes of Faith No More.
Yeah, definitely.
And suddenly all the music I was listening to was cool. Everybody else was into. And I always remember one time as well that my brother had borrowed a CD for a band called Cold Chamber.
Yeah, I loved Cold Chamber.
They were great, but my first experience of Cold Chamber, CD, no idea what CD it was. It was in this, I must have been about 10, I think, or 11 at that point, maybe a bit older. And it gave me such a headache. I was like,
What is this noise?
I was so. It's like, for me, it was a bit like when you have that, when you drink and you have that one drink you can't drink. So
Yeah.
you have a bad experience on. So Cold Chamber I can't listen to, sadly, because I just have all these things in my head.
Is it just stuck in your brain?
I'm hoping I can overcome it at some point. Not really. I don't think they're doing anything.
I really like them, so that's a shame. Damn. We'll listen to them.
Yeah,
we'll see how it affects you. We'll do a study.
Oh, God.
How Cold Chamber affects Rob's brain, and you'll just be like...
I don't know what new discoveries it'll lead to. Maybe what causes brain cancer or something. It certainly won't be the cure for it, but it will certainly it'll be very
It's research.
Okay, if you think it's research, if you think it can help the medical community,
we'll do it.
Go for it. Just strap me up, put some things on my head, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Cold Chamber was a weird experience. And then beyond that, I get into all the Scandinavian death metal. So I very quickly moved on from the new metal, and there was a copy of Kerrang! I had, this cover album, and that's when I discovered bands like Arch Enemy and In Flames, Dark Tranquillity. Great. Yeah, music has just always been around, and what I enjoy so much about doing the work that I do with the promoting is the opportunity to listen to so many new bands and hear what's out there and be like, well, this is incredible. Yeah. This should be mainstream. And so it's a real pleasure and privilege to be able to work with a lot of these bands that perhaps some of them...
You as well, because you're booking these bands, you're getting like sometimes first listens of songs and other stuff. And so you're like, oh, cool. Hardly anyone else has heard that. I've heard it now. That's great. I want more people to hear it. Absolutely.
I have been very fortunate to have exclusives from some bands that have played the Cotswold and other places. You get send little snippets, or maybe you're Facebook living, and then suddenly they randomly start playing and say, oh, this is a new song.
And you're like, oh, yeah, cool.
Like, oh, thank you very much.
For me?
It's just for me. I'm just like, what? So I guess that's a reflection of the relationship with some of these bands and other promoters and agents and what have you that I've been able to develop over the last couple of years that will hopefully prove mutually beneficial.
So booking bands, obviously, I can't imagine how many bands could be messaging you at one time. So, I mean, how difficult is it to juggle everything? Because obviously you're planning, one gig ends and everything else is still ongoing. You're still planning other ones and messaging other bands.
Exactly. Well, yes, it is hundreds a month. It is... I'll even be at gigs and I'm speaking to other bands about either arranging shows or someone's got in touch. So it is an incredible volume of bands, and that's a result, I guess, of the quality of shows that are going on, the word of mouth that's getting out there, the profile I've been able to raise. And of course, every time there's a promoter, no matter who you are, I'm sure bands are just, let's get in contact. They'll just want to play anywhere. So the moment anyone knows you're a promoter, you're bound to get a lot of interest. So it is a lot of work, and certainly in the early days. So when I first started out, again, didn't really have a concept. I knew that one band.
Yeah.
But I needed more. And so what I'd spent my time doing in those first couple of months was to start going down various rabbit holes. Start with this band. Who have they played with? Where have they played? Who else has played there? Joining all these dots, using every method. Google local bands in places.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything. Spotify, just going through everything. Yeah,
absolutely anything I could do to discover these bands, and then listen to them all. And you got probably hundreds in these first couple of weeks. I was absolute, and in that process, I'm then evaluating who do I think is good, who do I think could work at the Cotswold, all those sorts of things.
And then probably supposedly trying to put them all together, because you have to say, right, I got these guys, and these guys have to play with, and then you're like, right, okay, what the hell do I do to put these shows
Well, that's it. I mean, and that's even that comes after you even got to the point of actually communicating with these bands, trying to get them even on board to the fact that you're a new person, you've got a little DIY pub and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would they even want to come and play? And then through that process, I'm also kind of evaluating, are they too big to play? So certainly one or two bands in the early days I just dismissed as I would not be in a position to book them. A year down the line, I've been able to book them.
Yeah.
So it really is a huge process. It is not just what people see on a night as a gig. As you quite rightly say, these things are planned, and you're continuing to plan for the next couple of months every time. And what I'd like to do was to always book blocks, say 6 months in advance, as much as I could. And then once I've got those all planned out, we then release them. These are the shows for the next 6 months. So then that gives me some time off in between gigs, but also then
it's a good framework to work from. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and sometimes you're able to do it, sometimes not. And then even when you've got these gigs in place, dropouts, things change, bands break up. I've had all of that. I've had a band split up a week before. I've had a band 2 weeks before where their drummer's broken his hip, so they can't do the gig. I've had bands the night before, even on the day, they can't do the show. And that can be quite interesting. I wouldn't say I wouldn't want it every week, put it that way.
Yeah, but it keeps you on your toes.
It does, and actually some of the bands that have come out of that have really, the night's been even, well, the night's been great as a result. I wouldn't say even better because I would never have known.
Yeah.
It means that it's not disappointment. Actually, it can lead to further discoveries.
Just open another door.
Absolutely. These bands that you never would have heard of, you suddenly think, well, I want to work with these guys again.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, hey, I need a band. And someone goes, hey, I'll be that band. And you go, okay, you can be that band. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
what have I discovered? This is great.
This is it. It's so exciting. Just pop on these posts online on Facebook, these groups, and the amount of bands that come through, and you just think, yeah, that works. Yeah, that's good. And then, of course, the other point that you mentioned, once you've got a band booked, you think, who can you put with them? And we're quite fortunate in some of the early gigs where it wasn't so vital. It turned out to have local support on some of these shows. We were able, because there was such a novelty still and the good footfall that we have, that I was able to put on band nights, and they didn't have to be from the local scene. I felt when I started, and this was probably just a bit of my ignorance as well, that there didn't seem too much of a depth to the music scene a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That was just my perception at that point. And so I've seen in this last couple of years a much bigger talent pool out there. And I think, and what that has done is meant that I can now have local bands on most of these shows, and it's great for those local bands to come and play and meet these out-of-towners, because that's generally the format I've gone with, is bring a headliner from out of town and then pair them with these bands. And then I love seeing the bands talk and get along, and then lead to doing maybe other gigs elsewhere together.
Yeah.
And things. So it's never just a gig. Yes, you've got your come in and seeing the bands are playing. Beyond that, it's a networking opportunity for the bands.
Definitely.
Myself, and yeah.
They go there, then if you've never met them before, they meet you, then you start talking to them, and they start talking to people that are with the other band, and then the other band starts talking to them, and it just gets, it's good. It's a great social event as well.
It is, and one of the weirdest moments was I booked 2 out-of-town bands, completely separately, didn't know, well, what it turned out I didn't know was that they were from the very same place. They didn't know each other.
Oh, wow.
But then they realised they knew some of the same people, and then they were going to plan and do shows together. So you get these moments of sort of
nice
happenstance occur. And yeah, I just love it when the bands start getting on and things like that.
Are there any bands that you would really like to work with? Any that come to mind, or sort of bands that you really want to go for?
I've been very fortunate to have already worked with a lot of the bands that I really wanted to in this scene. So bands like The Cut, the Soap Girls, Second Self maybe. Nah.
Don't know.
So they were. I wouldn't go there.
Listen to me.
Don't waste. No. Yeah, you think Cold Chamber was bad?
Yeah, they're a Cold Chamber cover band.
So yeah, as I said, I'm very fortunate. But yes, there are bands out there. Hands Off Gretel never had that opportunity, so they would be a fantastic one to work with. Sumo Psycho from Canada, absolutely incredible band. I've followed them for a couple of years now. See them every time they're over, and they would just be incredible, I believe, to do. They played Download this year.
Yeah, I saw them on their lineup.
Really well. And yeah, there probably are others that don't immediately come to mind. And again, with the bands, I'm quite happy, and I'm only really interested in bands once they reach a certain level. So big arena bands like Royal Blood or Queens of the Stone Age or Foo Fighters, that's not where I want to be. I want to give my time and money and dedication to the bands that will benefit it more to talk about what they're doing.
They will actually benefit from playing these gigs.
Yeah, that money goes directly, and they need it to get to further down the line because the bands are really established. So it's, I just really want to work with any band that I believe has got potential, is on a path, is on some kind of trajectory, and ultimately are just lovely to work with and easy to work with, and understand that we're all together and that this is all about putting on a great night.
Well, let's move away from music for a while, because let's get to know you a little bit better. What other hobbies do you have? What else do you do apart from music? What else?
I sleep.
Sometimes,
if I can.
you don't really.
If I get a chance.
Do you have time to do anything else?
Barely. You're lucky I've showered today. It's getting that bad sometimes. Yeah, I have some interests out of. I won't advertise what my day job is, but yeah, I do things like D&D. Just got into Dungeons and Dragons this year with a few close friends who've been doing it since January.
Nice.
So that's just a bit of fun. I do a board gaming a little bit as a result of that as well. I'm just a standard kind of go to the cinema sometimes and watch football.
Well, you need to turn off sometimes, don't you?
Wrestling,
yeah,
all these sorts of, and creative writing, as I mentioned earlier. So writing film and scripts and working on some novel ideas as well.
Is that a good way for you to kind of just, because obviously you're busy, is it a good way for your brain to just go, right, boom, turn that off for a second and just concentrate on what's on the paper, basically?
Yeah, absolutely, because when the music promo started out, it was a hobby. It was that thing that was different to work and everything else. And then in a short space of time, it became an override and became more of naturally a business thing, a professional sort of thing. And so I now need another hobby or something else that comes away from it.
It's taken a new whole phase. It's taken it a step up. It's gone from you having a hobby to like, wow, this is a business. This is something I've got
seriously now.
Yeah. So you need other things to take you away from what that was taking you away from previously.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly one of the reasons why I'm going for a bit of a hopefully shortish break from putting on live shows, because having put all of myself into it, I need to take a bit of me back.
Definitely.
And take back those Friday nights as weekends, enjoy that sort of stuff, even if I do nothing at all. I haven't got to think about booking gigs 6 months in advance as well, although I've already started doing that as well.
You don't want to run yourself into the ground, do you? You don't want to you've done it for what? It's been 2.5 years now.
Yeah, it was 2 years in August. Gone.
So 2 years.
Over 100 shows.
Even more than that. That's what I mean. Over 100 shows. You don't want to kind of run yourself into that point where you think there's just so much going on, I can't handle it. So you taking a break. I mean, that's fair for everyone. And like you said, even though you've said you're taking a break, you are, but you're not, because you're also thinking about all the stuff that you want to do after the break.
Yeah, it's not even a break. Let's be honest.
It's not even a break.
I'm not going on a break. That's all a lie.
There will just be no shows for a while.
I'm just scaling back operations.
To
what I'm doing. And certainly, One Eye is definitely being kept on next year, and because everything has a lead-in time, it's not as though I can say for example, April next year, right, break's over, let's put on a show. Because if I go at that point, I'm still going to be 3 months after that, at least, that something's probably going to even come out. So, yes, during that break period, yeah, there are going to be something, but I'd say they're already.
It would just be nice to, know that you can do that in your own time, really, at the
Yeah,
moment, and you can, like you said, you can take a bit of time for yourself. Yeah. Have you got any advice for up and coming promoters or people just booking gigs in general? Any sort of advice you can offer to them when they're getting started? Because you're so close to, you're 2 years in, but for some people they think, wow, he's still right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but you've got a lot of experience to offer people that have never done it before. So what would you say to someone who came up to you and said, oh, I want to book some gigs, man?
I think you have to think about why you're doing it. What is your motivation for wanting to do a gig? Is it because you want to put on a friend's band? Is it because you want to make a bit of money? Is it because you want to bring music to your town or city? So very much think about why you're going to do it, because that's going to be the thing that's going to carry you and motivate you and be the thing that you will, when you have moments of maybe, why am I doing this, or something gets too much, it can possibly be that thing that helps you just ground yourself. And I've had to do that a few times. I mean, as I said earlier, there were so many reasons why I got into this. One reason was to really make Cheltenham more of a place for music and to bring bands from all over here and make this a place that does have stuff going on.
People want to come to,
the local bands as well, who can kind of prosper as a result. So think about why you're doing it. And then when you go into it, think about the venue space you're using, think about the audience. So who are they, what are they into? Say if you're doing it in a place with regular footfall, if you're just picking up a venue, then you maybe don't have to think so much about that, because then it's the bands that will dictate who goes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, think about the venue itself. So what is it known for? Who's played there? The financial side, that's a big thing. I've always been quite lucky in that regard, in that I've never actually spent my own money doing it. So the financial thing is huge. And what that really comes down to is risk, is assessing the risk of it. So you have to think about how much money you're willing to write off. So whatever figure that is, if you're going into it, so that maybe that's the cost of the venue and the bands. If it's something you're prepared to lose, great, because then that will alleviate a lot of stress if it's not successful. If this is money that you really need, don't do it.
Yeah.
You also have to book smart. You have to have a judgment, and that's maybe innate. That's possibly not something that you can really tell people, but you want to judge a band's path. So where have they come from? Where they've been playing? Who they've been playing with? What kind of press have they been getting? So you're kind of gauging what their profile is, to the point of, can they help sell tickets as a result?
Yeah.
So you think about genres, think about bands that work together, and then you've just got the logistics on the night as well. So one great thing, this is probably a good thing to put online, I might do it at some point, is this whole list of information. I'll probably share it with you. We've got to a stage now where I just get a message from Yannick and he's like, is it 7 p.m? And it's like, yeah, it's 7 p.m. We don't even need to give you all the proper spiel. But yeah, we've got all the load-in times, we've got the sound check, you've got this, blah, 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 what equipment's being used. And that's something I picked up very early on from a booking agent who sent me this information. I was like, I'm going to have that. So then when I used that with a band later on, the singer said to a bandmate, look, this is so professional, this is great, I love it. And I'm like, yeah, I totally thought of all that. So again, another piece of advice would be to listen and learn. And if you see something you like that is either helpful to you or just seems like a really good idea, adopt it, make it work for you. And ultimately you have to just realize it's all about having fun. The gigs have got to be fun, and enjoy what's going on, even if anything's disappointed you in one way or another. Just try and focus on and think about and enjoy the music. And again, another piece of advice, of course there's a few bits here, is take time to spend time with the bands. Particularly if these are bands which you've never met personally before, they've travelled a couple of hours or what have you, or maybe they're in a different country and they've come to your place. Do the micro-hosting, the hospitality, do the meet and greet, and be there when they arrive. Help bring in gear if you can. Make sure when you introduce them to the venue, show them where all the amenities are, where the toilets are, where they're going to be able to store gear. Really welcome the band and just try and engage on them with as much of a personal level as possible, so that you have that relationship, because then that can be built on, and the whole night is a lot easier as a result. So if you can do that, if you can really bond with these bands, that's great. And then likewise with the audience as well. These are people that are coming to your gigs, they maybe bought a ticket, you obviously want them to come back. So if you can, if there's opportunity, say hello to people, see what they thought of the night, see what bands maybe they like, things like that. So it's always about building what you've got, and you build that by getting repeat custom, people coming back to shows. You're showing engagement as a promoter, that you're interested in what they're interested in, and you want them to have a good night. And with the band stuff, certainly I view what I do as it is a pleasure for me and my role to give the bands the opportunity to do what they enjoy doing. It's not about me doing this for my own gratification. It's a responsibility that I put myself out there. I'm saying I'm going to put on some shows, so it all then lies with me for everything to go smoothly, so that bands don't have to think about everything.
Yeah, and when they're having a good time, then you're having a good time, and you're thinking, wow, the crowd's having a good time.
Yeah.
And the whole environment then just lights up, doesn't it? And then you're like, wow, these people are going to come back, the band's going to want to come back, the venue think, wow, this is fantastic, we're making money.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You have to be actually a lightning rod. You are the be-all and end-all, and you have to be prepared and recognise that you have that responsibility. If you're a promoter putting on a new show, figure out how much you can take on yourself. I was very lucky in the early days, for about the first 8 months, I'd say, that I had two friends I'd really like to mention, that's Howard and Gaff, who dedicated a lot of their free time to work on the sound for these shows, until there came a point where I was able to learn enough to get by. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first show I did on sound was last May for a band called Healthy Junkies. And they were just fantastic, because I said, this is my first time doing it. I've been shown this. All I want to do, get the vocals up here. Okay. And the guitarist Phil just said the most wonderful thing. I'm sure he won't mind me saying this.
Go on.
He said, to be honest, we like the vocals a bit lower in the mix, and if anybody wants to learn the words, they can just buy the fucking album. I was like, brilliant, that's it. So now if anybody says, I can't really hear what they're saying, I was like, just buy the fucking album. If you want to learn it, do
EPs
that.
and albums for sale over there.
Yeah, that's it. Then you can learn it all to your heart's content. This is all about music. This is just get lost in the moment. So that's been great. So yeah, be prepared. You're going to learn some stuff. Figure out how much you're going to want. Figure out what you know already. What do you need to know? What do you need to do? Work with people. Pull in as many favors as you can. And also recognize if it becomes too much, take the step back.
Take time.
Take the time
for yourself. And finally, so what are the plans going forward? I know we talked a little bit about it. What are you? I know obviously we discussed you having a bit of time off, but it's not really time off with you, is it? You're still planning stuff. But when are we gonna see some gigs next year then? Because I know you've got Wheels in Motion at the moment. But...
Yeah. I don't know what I can really confirm. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a show from me in January.
Okay.
That's not a guarantee.
No.
It's probably going to be a few months into 2020 that more shows may come from me. It's something I do want to carry on doing. It is my intention to return to live gigs. What I'm also looking at is a result of having done this for 2 years. So I've gone from this point of not really knowing anything to being 2 years in and seeing all these different other components of the industry. So things like band managers, tour booking agents, all these different sized PR. Mm-hmm. So I'm now looking at what interests me, what do I feel I have the skills for, where can I add value to perhaps try out some of these other aspects. I have been fortunate to have already done a bit of band management for about 8 months it was last year. So I've learned a bit from that, and I've kind of done a bit of tour booking as well for a short run of gigs. So I'm now looking at how I can...
Do you want to absorb these things as well?
Yeah.
And adopt them?
Where do I really fit?
Yeah.
What are the skills that I have, and I think to really benefit myself and benefit the industry as a whole, these bands and things. So
you've looked at the watch, you've opened it, and you've gone, oh, this is how it works. What does all this do? What does that do? What does that do? Oh, I can move that and do that and think that. So you've kind of seen the inner workings now.
Exactly. We've sort of gone through the looking glass a bit. And so I would like to say that I am and will be looking at booking some tours for a couple of bands. Of course, I was involved with a festival, a one-day festival this year called Howlfest in Bristol. Really enjoyed it. I learned. We could do a whole other interview on what that was like. And so that is loosely being talked about as something to happen next year again. So that is in plan. And yes, I will be doing it again also this year. So something you'll be aware of, I believe. The last couple of years I've been doing this list of top 50 bands from the unsigned and independent scene. So that has been one of the best things I've ever done in terms of an opportunity to get to know bands and to raise the profile of what I do and get my promotions out there. So that will happen in December again this year. That's not going to stop. I'm looking to refresh that, so getting a bit more of a sort of professional package on that one.
Nice.
So I can get that out. That's been really great because over the last 2 years, the lists have gone to sort of 6 figures.
Yeah, because you think you got all those bands on there, and the bands go, "Hey, oh cool, we're on the list." Then they share it, and their friends go, "Oh, they're on there, share it." So the amount of engagement you get from that is just great for everyone. For you, for the bands.
Exactly, and because. And from that, I was very lucky. I didn't realise that bands like Sumo Psycho, where they were willing to share it both times. I'm like, well, these are huge on the sort of scene. They've got like 30,000, 40,000 followers on each of their platforms. Yeah. And they're giving me that opportunity to have my stuff on that channel. So it's, that's again kind of just figuring out how one can be strategic in trying to grow the brand and build a reputation, get to know other bands. Because that's another thing I would say to promoters and anybody in almost anything you do is to think strategically. If you want to get to somewhere and you don't think you can yet. So for example, if I say there was a band that I didn't think I would be able to book, but then I sort of look at things and think, okay, which bands have they played with? Who do they appear good friends with? So then you can start booking those bands, and then you get to that. You've got to
really think tactics.
So this is it, just big brain thinking on some of this. You can't be taught it, I don't think. It's just, you've either got a mind for some of this stuff or you haven't. And yeah, so next year there will be stuff, there will be maybe out of town stuff, there will be... I almost don't know what.
But the wheels are in motion. You've got some plans. Can't talk about all of it now, but there's obviously going to be some stuff happening next year.
Absolutely, and it's just always about growing and building on what you've already seen. And yes, a lot of this stuff already has just happened organically. Things just come up out of the blue now and then. And it just moves up to the next level each time. So no doubt a lot of stuff that I don't even realise I might be involved in next year may well come up. So I'll just continue to try and be a voice to push these up and coming bands, give them a platform, however that might be, continue to support them, continue to get people to listen to them. And hopefully, in a year's time we can have a conversation about...
Yeah. About how last year went.
How that break went. Will you do it again? We'll see. But yeah,
well, thanks for talking to me, dude.
It's a pleasure, man.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.